What's up, guys? Today I have a Solar 3.0 build for all you Warlocks out there. This is the build I've been playing with, well, for the last couple days since it came out yesterday. It has been such a fun build to use. It utilizes the Solar 3.0 aspects, of course, but utilizes the Sun Bracers and Monte Carlo. So this will be a melee-focused Solar build, but it is very gratifying. So with our helm, just any standard helm, of course, I have it in stasis, but I don't think it needs to be for this build. I have it with kinetic siphon, which creates orbs of power for kinetic final blows, which we'll be doing quite a bit of with the Monte Carlo, and melee well maker. So powered melee combatant final blows, spawn elemental wells. That's going to be the premise of our entire build. Just melee, powered melee kills and wells and orbs galore. For our gauntlets, we have Sun Bracers, of course. This is the key to this whole build. We have melee kickstart on here, just to help boost that melee energy, although you can swap this out for any of your champion mods, obvious. And then I have high energy fire. Because we're going to be utilizing the orbs of power, we definitely want to be doing as much damage as possible. And this adds, I believe, a 20% damage buff. So this will be a great extra damage boost. And the intrinsic trait of the Sun Bracers essentially makes the solar grenades last longer. And I'm pretty sure that couples well with the already lengthened state of the solar grenades with the aspects, which we'll get into in a moment. But the solar melee kills grant unlimited solar grenade energy for a brief time. So you can get about 5 grenades out with that, and it just instantly recharges. I have some footage of that. It is amazing, and it will melt. For our chest armor, we have our resist mods, just as a standard. But we also have taking charge. So every time you pick up an orb of power, you become charged with light. Pretty straightforward. For our boots, we have a arc build using invigoration to reduce melee cooldown each time you pick up an orb of power, and absolution, which does the same thing except for all of your abilities. And then I have elemental charge, which basically means that your wells act like orbs of light, so you get charged with light every single time you pick one up. And if it's solar, you get 2, which basically means you get max stacks each time unless you're running a increased charge with light mod. And then finally, for our class item, we are running a solar class item. I'm personally running it with bomber, just because, you know, the reduced grenade cooldown can't hurt. Second one, we have a explosive finisher, so this will restore grenades every time you do a finisher. You can omit this. Again, these are just placeholders. Realistically speaking, you're probably going to have the seasonal artifact mods on here. I just don't have them unlocked yet. And then finally, we have Heal Thyself. This is one that I didn't really ever see used prior, but while you're charged with light, grenade final blows heal you and consume 1 stack of charged light. This comes in clutch because you're constantly going to be picking up wells and orbs and all that stuff, and the whole build is centered around getting those melee kills and then spamming grenades. That is the entire build's purpose. With this, you can kind of heal yourself intermittently as passive to some degree. You can do it actively, but it is pretty passive. It's not as good as Devour was on the Void 3.0. But this is about as close as I found so far to getting that, aside from, you know, a couple other niche things. But I feel like this plays well into our build. For our featured exotic weapon, we have Monte Carlo, of course. For those who don't know what Monte Carlo is, every time you do damage with this weapon, you gain melee cooldown. Like, you gain your melee back. And every time you get a kill, you have a chance to get it fully back. So you can just be constantly throwing your melees, and then grenades every time. If you get a kill with your melee, you have a bunch of grenades to throw. You can put out so much DPS, and for a Warlock, that's rare. And then also melee kills grant ammo for this weapon. I'm pretty sure it just reloads it. But you get more damage from melee kills. It all just synergizes so well. You get so much damage. Couple that with your charge with light, and then your radiant, which we'll get into here now. It works so well. For our build, we have our Well of Radiance. I just like this one because it's a good healing method. Along with Heal Thyself, it works pretty well. Nobody complains about it well. So you get Radiant. Radiant is going to come in very clutch in this build as well. Your weapons are enhanced by the power of the Traveler and deal increased damage to foes. We're going to be Radiant all the time. Anytime you're getting a melee kill, powered melee kill, you're going to be Radiant. So you're going to get, I think it's a 15% weapon buff. I'll have to run the numbers later on. But moving on, we do have Phoenix Dive. Dive to the ground, create a burst of solar light, that cures nearby allies. Cure is basically healing. When Heat Rises is active, you gain restoration while diving and scorch targets upon landing. Heat Rises is basically if you have the aspect Heat Rises, you consume your grenade and you have Heat Rises. And that works really well with Phoenix Dive, considering you're just going to be able to dive straight to the ground, and you're going to be able to heal yourself as well as scorch your enemies nearby, which, Scorch is the big thing this season. Like Volatile rounds were last season, Scorch and Ignition are this season. I have Strafe Blood on. I do like the increased movement and whatnot, as you'll be able to fire your weapons or grenades, all that fun stuff, from air with this build. So having that increased mobility is very, very nice. You can do Balance Glide or even Burst Glide if you really wanted to. I'm just a fan of Strafe for this one. For our melee ability, we're going to do Incinerator Snap, although you can also do Celestial Fire. I just feel like the Incinerator Snap is more satisfying, I guess. It also applies Scorch. And Scorch is, well, it has it right here. The target is singed by destructive solar light, taking damage over time. Scorch damage increases, the target accumulates more Scorch stacks. After enough Scorch stacks are applied to the target, they ignite. And when they ignite, it's basically a large solar explosion, which deals AoE damage. For our grenade, we have Solar Grenade. This is the only one I believe that works with Sun Bracers, so this is mandatory. For our aspects, we have Heat Rises, as I said. Singed Tone, bound leather with no scratch in the margins. You hold measurable knowledge of the approaching dawn. You can fire weapons melee and throw grenades while gliding. If you hold your grenade button, you'll activate Heat Rises, as I said. And then if you get Final Blows while airborne, you get a long duration of Heat Rises, and you get melee energy. Again, it synergizes so well with a melee focused build. And then for our second one, we have Touch of Flame. So this is the one where it affects your grenades. In our case, it's going to affect our Solar Grenade, which increases the linger duration. Couple that with the Sunbracers increased linger duration, and you have a really long-lasting grenade. And it emits blobs of lava around. So it's essentially just increasing DPS, because these blobs of lava do about twice the amount of damage of 2 to 3 times the amount of damage of the base damage of the grenade. And it's just constantly spewing them out. It does work with gravity, so if you put it on a wall or a ceiling or something like that, it will drop down those fireballs. So it could be a good area denial, but that could be the same effect by just putting it on the ground. For our fragments, we are running Ember of Solace. Radiant and Restoration effects applied to you have increased duration. Because we're going to be Radiant a lot, having that increased duration is very, very nice. Restoration is cool too. That's going to be more niche to like this Phoenix Dive, but it'll only benefit you. We have Ember of Torches next. That is power melee attacks against combatants make you and nearby allies radiant. Like I just said, Radiance is going to be so easy to acquire in this. Next we have Ember of Ashes. You apply more Scorch stacks to targets. So as you're putting those melee, you're snapping on those enemies and they don't die immediately. They could die from the scorching. After a second or two, if you hit all 3 of them on them, or more than one hit, they'll explode and you'll get counted. It'll get counted as your melee power melee final blow and give you those unlimited grenades. It is very, very nice, and this just allows you to place more scorch stacks on target, so bigger bosses, you can just keep on zacking and they take a lot of damage. And then finally we have Ember of Wonder. Rapidly defeating multiple targets with solar ignitions generates orbs of power. This one's not as important, I would say, to the build. This is just I didn't really have much else to add to it that I felt really synergized with this. I could be wrong, but of the ones I have unlocked, that is what works best. It also gives you 10 plus to your resilience. As a Warlock, that's not really all that important unless you're doing a PvP build, but this is largely a PvM build. Just in general, day-to-day. So this, for me, is the build that I use that feels, in a way, like the solar version of Volatile Rounds Void 3.0 last season. But let me know what you guys think. I definitely recommend trying this build, at least for the fun of it. It is very, very satisfying to throw grenades constantly at yellow bars, and it's even more fun to be able to just constantly snap and just explode a bunch of people. It is fantastic. Give this build a try. I will show background footage, of course, after this for proof of concept and everything to show you damage values. I also did do the damage for base, radiant, charged with light, and at both. As you'll be charged with light pretty often, and you'll be radiant all the time. It's good to know that they do synergize. They do work together. They're very, very strong. So definitely try this build out and give it a shot. Let me know what you guys think. On top of all the synergies that work well with this, all that we've discussed, this won't just work well this season. This build actually should work really well going forward, even after this season, just as a generally good solar build. Because none of what I used in this build included any of the artifact mods. The artifact mods this season, I don't feel like are overly beneficial to this build, except for maybe a few, like the Molten Overload. This would be really good for overloads, since it is going to be a lot of grenade spam. Maybe like Withering Heat or Revitalizing Blast. These are just kind of, if you want Solar Precision Final Blows cause Ignition, Solar Exotic Final Blows cause create solar elemental wells. We're not using a solar exotic unless you want to use like Vex or something, but I think Monte Carlo still works better. Generally speaking, picking up Orb Power makes you radiant, not necessary, and then solar class abilities grant you restoration. I don't feel like any of these are necessary to the build. I would probably use Molten Overload just because it will work in Grandmasters. But regardless, I just wanted to add that little tidbit in here. But aside from that, hope you guys have a great day. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, like, share, subscribe, comment if you like. I'm always open to feedback too. If you have any suggestions on builds that may be better or that you found that work well too, I have a few other ones in mind, including our crime scenes and stuff. But until next time, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Take care.